Here on High in the Hog, we talk a lot about products, we talk a lot about terpenes, we talk a lot about the endocannabinoid system, we talk about so much of how the body is affected. But we also talk about what an amazing business this has spawned. It's a business that didn't exist. I mean, did not exist not very long ago. And there are a few people deeper into the business than Paul Rosen. Paul, welcome to the show.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Errol.
No problem. Okay, you have a perspective as a guy who's involved with cannabis products on so many levels with where it's going right now. Where's it going right now?
Well, I guess that is the trillion-dollar question. And it's a realistic estimate. I mean, at this exact moment, cannabis is moving so quickly, and it has been moving so quickly as an industry developing the last several years, that everything is playing out in sort of super hyper real time. So, you know, when you say where are we, I almost could say, do you mean like really where are we real time? We're in a funny spot right now in the cannabis industry in that it has been sort of summer horribilis for a lot of the public companies. The market is quite frankly way sold down. We're looking at generally across the public companies a retreat in the last, say, even 90 days of 25 to 30%, and even over a longer time horizon, more steep declines over the last 6 or 8 months. And there's been some sort of undermining of some of the thesis and confidence in the industry because a few things have happened in the summer that have rattled investor confidence. Some of those things would include the firing of Bruce Linton, the CEO of Canopy Growth Corporation, and the massive losses that quickly followed the termination, as expressed through Constellation's displeasure of terminating Bruce. A very well-regarded licensed production and public company in Canada that trades on the NYSE called CanTrust has had a terrible regulatory failure, which is resulting in terrible shareholder losses. They essentially were caught cheating the regulator and growing in unauthorized areas of the facility and covering it up, and some behavior that has really shocked the industry because they had a very, very high regard. The FDA has written a letter to Curaleaf regarding the type of attestations they were making in the selling of their CBD products. And now the vaping crisis, which is a very serious issue. All of these sort of events in symmetry have shaken a little bit the investor confidence in the industry. And this is not too shocking. This is what a young industry growing at hyper warp speed looks like, and it shouldn't be that much of a shock, but for the people going through it, it's a pretty turbulent time right now, Meryl.
They were promoting on CNN this very morning upcoming part 5 of their CBD series, and the term they used was the Wild West. It's both a gold rush and it's the Wild West.
The green rush, I liked it.
Well, they weren't.
Sure.
It's CNN, so they weren't that creative. But on the other hand, the other day I walked into Bristol Farms, and there was a table there from Charlotte's Web where they gave out samples. And I said, where do they carry this, George? He took me to a whole, not an aisle, but a section of an aisle dedicated to CBD products. And it's like, it's ubiquitous. I go into CVS, there's CBD. It's strange. What was for a while, at least, an underground product, you know, something that you and I knew about, it was nudge, nudge, hint, hint, you should try this stuff, is now, you know, kind of, it's like Greek yogurt. Everybody knows about it.
Well, everyone's doing it and trying it.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, CBD is a phenomenon, there's no doubt about it. And I think you've really highlighted something that's important is there's two stories that I'm watching the public markets because I came of age, if you will, in the public markets. But here I am in Los Angeles, California, the epicenter of consumer cannabis culture. Mm-hmm. And from the ground, I'll report to the world, business is booming, the market is exploding. So it's very important not to misunderstand the signals going on in the public markets with what's actually going on in our industry. This industry, the thesis of cannabis being just a huge part of our future economy and really taking a big bite out of conventional industries is absolutely intact. In no way are we thinking, hey, you know, we lost our heads. We were crazy for cannabis for a few years, but it's really not going to be this big thing. It's going to be enormous, and I would predict even larger than some of the most optimistic, you know, prognosticators, myself included. But we're imagine that we're just a little baby, if you will, as an industry. And, you know, we're going through rapid cognitive development, and maybe sometimes we go through the terrible twos, or we go through things that happen. You mentioned gold rush, green rush. It does attract a lot of speculators, if you will, and a speculation mentality. So what we feel, and I say we means I think a lot of the people that have been working inside this industry for years, is, you know, we have a great class of entrepreneurs in the world right now that are excited by the cannabis economy. And it's, you know, as a person that mentors and engenders entrepreneurs and is a fierce champion of entrepreneurship, it's thrilling. There's also a whole collection of other people just trying to punch their ticket, if you will. There's the regulator, there's the body politics. So it's complicated. It's moving so fast that there's going to be these sort of lurches, if you will. Mistakes are going to be made. Some companies are going to get caught cheating, if you will. But the market is exploding. The consumer demand is exploding. And the long-term prospects for this industry are incredibly bright. The only thing is that right now we have in America roughly 28,000 cannabis companies operating, and I'll predict that in 2 years from now that number will swell to 40 or 50,000. But I'll equally predict that, or also predict that, say in 10 or 12 years, only a small handful of those companies will still be operating. Maybe 1,000. Like, think about it. As a mature industry, you have 1,000 viable participants. So there's going to be a lot of winning and a lot of losing in terms of investors and entrepreneurs. And when we figure it out, the winners are going to be enormous winners. And there's going to be enough of them that there's a chance for everyone that is operating professionally and earnestly to still, you know, have their truest aspirations accomplished. But unfortunately, and like in development of any new industry, there's going to be a lot of companies that don't make it. In around the time that Henry Ford was pioneering the Model T, there were over 100 automobile companies in the United States. This is just a matter of historical fact. How many are left today? So this is the way new markets develop. There's a flurry of activity because people see the enormity of the opportunity, the size of the new economy, and like a great free market economy that we are, we jump in because that's what we do. We respond to opportunity. Then the market sorts out who can really swim, who can't swim. So this is all normal, but your observation that at a retail level, on the shelves of stores, in the dispensaries, the demand for the product, whether it's CBD, psychoactive product, and the whole range of cannabinoids that haven't yet been fully understood and commercialized, which are coming, this plant is going to change the world.
We've done a number of events where we've had presentations on CBD for healing, for pain, and what have you. And I think we've been amazed by the profile of people who have shown up. They've been in their 70s and 80s. They've been like, these are not stoners. This is a world of people who have tried too many drugs for that arthritis, and nothing's been working all that well, and they really don't want to use, they're certainly not going to go to opioids. The danger is far too significant. And then you introduce this wondrous thing, this magic formula that you say this will do it, and it's not addictive. And you have to get the brands that matter, and of which there are very few marquee brands out there. I think of Papa and Barkley, I think of Charlotte's Web, I think of the MedMen stores as basically the Amazons, the ones that will trounce everything else because they dominate, and we've come to trust their quality. But as you say, there are thousands out there, and it's like, who knows what they're worth.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on the individual prospects of any company, but I will say I feel that there's very few companies in the industry that are already sort of insurmountable incumbents. I think it's too early. Anyone can be disrupted right now. Mm-hmm. I think the only what I would really always measure now is the balance sheets of these companies more than the sense of that they're popular, they're well known. And I'm not, some of those companies you mentioned are great companies, and I'm not in any way mentioning them,
Right.
but really across the entire ecosystem, it's too early, in my opinion, to make a real call on who is going to be Amazon. We're not even, in my humble opinion, close to that. We have not yet. This summer has actually shown us that what we thought was a sure thing, which was that these big sort of behemoths coming out of Canada and the MSOs was the sure thing. Now we're starting to look at them like, are they going to be Amazon or are they going to be Uber? Like, that is to say high growth but massive losses with no specter of profitability. Like, it took Amazon a long time to become Amazon, and it took investors to have a lot of faith. Amazon didn't establish profitability or cash flow positivity for took well over a decade. And they were, Bezos had a vision that clearly has been validated as visionary. His vision was visionary.
Well, he started out selling books.
But we don't, right? But we don't know yet. We're not there yet. Like, we need to start seeing companies that are really winning the battle of the heart and the mind of the consumer or patient, and that also are running incredibly efficient capital organizations. And what we have seen is essentially in cannabis, they gave the kids a huge amount of money, and the parents went away for the week. The kids acted like maniacs, and the parents came home. It's like that movie we've all seen. There's been like 12 versions of this movie. Superbad, Booksmart, Animal House, Risky Business, House Party. It's the classic Hollywood. It's the classic trope. The last night of high school. You could almost say that's what's happening a little bit. In that, like, if you look at Canopy and Constellation. I know I saw Bruce on stage at the Cannabis World Congress with Martha Stewart, like 3 weeks before this happened, and he was, and I like Bruce a lot. I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do at that time, but whether it was actually long-term good business or not, we're not sure. But it was basically a wild spending spree because the market was cheering it on, and this thesis that you should buy everything at whatever cost as quickly as possible and worry about integration and valuation later. That's kind of like a game of musical chairs. If the music keeps on playing, you don't have to count the chairs and the seat and the people that have to sit in those chairs or the organizations. So we're going to see when the music slows down, the music is capital, we're going to see there's just not enough chairs.
Yeah,
and
but
what's interesting in business, in cannabis, is the rules aren't always the same. So something, you could be chugging along, think you're doing great, and then a weird roadblock will come in the road.
Well, I don't know, a $1.2 billion loss is not a weird roadblock. It's just a $1.2 billion loss.
No, I'm talking more like if your location happens to be near a school.
Well, or let's you're right. You're so right, Joanna. Let's say, for example, I spoke about this yesterday at CWBC or whatever the National World Congress. But a month ago we didn't have a real vape crisis, and there are some very well regarded, high-flying, high market cap companies that are only in the vape industry. I'm not picking out names, but two really well-known ones would be like Pax and Dosist.
yes.
So
which we know well.
We are, let's see, New York state or city has banned all flavored e-cigarettes. Michigan has banned all flavored e-cigarettes. Massachusetts has banned a 4-month moratorium on all vaping products, period, without any exception. Same thing as San Francisco. LA, there's the internet is alight with rumors that LA, because there's a proposal put forward, is going to, same thing, just ban vaping, period, full stop, no exceptions, not tobacco only products, just all of it. So that's an example of companies whose business plans are now under serious threat for something that was not on the event horizon. Maybe it was, but no one was really thinking of such a thing. And for the overall industry, this is just another growing pain, but for certain companies, it's going to be an existential event for them. And so for all of us, that's kind of like aha. And that's to your point, Joanne, is that when you've got such a young industry and we don't have decades of operating experience, regulatory consistency, there's still a chance in year 6 or year 7 or year 3 or year 4 to go, holy blank, that's kind of like a bolt of lightning we didn't see coming. And it could come in either direction. It could come with Trump deciding that he should deschedule cannabis tomorrow morning in a tweet, and that would also be a seismic bolt that would ignite the industry. So this is for those of you that are investing in the industry, participating. It's incredible. I can attest to it, but it's also volatile, and this is not a good place for your retirement fund to invest in right now. And to pick one company out of the heap and to back is very risky, in my opinion. We're seeing there are fortunes to be made and fortunes to be lost in cannabis.
How does the business differ in Canada? Because you are from Canada, and I think Canada was ahead of the US by a country mile. If I'm correct.
Again, it's yes and no. Completely useless answer, but mostly yes. So the biggest obvious difference is that Canada isn't having a disagreement between its federal and its provincial governments as to cannabis. It's legal federally. So we don't have this overhang that you have in the United States. As a result of not having the overhang, we became the place to raise money. The only place to invest in cannabis in 2013 when I started, 2014, was Canada. The US investors that have painted the town started in Canada because they would not be prepared to risk their hedge fund or their reputations on investing in an illegal industry. But at least in Canada, in terms of compliance, it was federally legal, so there were no laws being broken in the jurisdiction that they were investing. This ignited in Canada just a phenomenal, almost historic level of entrepreneurial activity. Once the banks got a bite and realized, I'm talking about the investment banks that raise money for fee as their business model, once they got a bite and they smelled it, and once Justin Trudeau was elected Prime Minister, partly on the platform of legalization and then delivered, Canada became the capital of the global cannabis industry. Toronto, and specifically, became the financial center of the global cannabis industry, and it resulted in the US companies eventually coming to list their companies on our Canadian stock exchanges. Every company that is US that you would know that is public mostly is listed in Canada. Some are listed on the OTC market in the States. Most are listed on our Canadian Securities Exchange. So Canada has banked the global industry, but also because our licensed producers were first movers, they have extended their reach to open up production assets on a JV basis in almost every emerging jurisdiction in the world. So Canada has been the heavyweight champion of cannabis unequivocally for the last 6 years, dominated in every aspect, dominated in development of technology, dominated in globalization, dominated in raising capital, dominated in brand development. And one of the trends I forecast coming forward is the end of that Canadian domination. But Canada has played a historically unique, critical role, and when the whole story is written, Canada will be sort of the force multiplier that drove cannabis from sort of this, what was gray market, black market, to a fully legal. We showed the world that when you go full legal, you don't damage Main Street, you don't damage civil society, you actually provide compassionate healing and jobs and taxes.
I was about to ask how that has impacted usage in Canada. Is it fairly universal? Is it still a niche business? How do Canadians perceive their cannabis
You hit on it.
availability?
You actually hit on it without realizing is that the only group demographically that's really increasing their usage is senior citizens and older people.
Mm-hmm.
Teens and, if you will, millennials, Gen X's or whatever, they're not using much more or much less. But they're happy, I'm sure, as my kids are. I have kids who are 19 and 25, to be able to do it in such a regular way and not have it feel like, not that they cared that much, because no one really cared about buying, quarter ounce on campus or something like that. But it's all good. Like, it's all really, really good, and it's proving itself over time. The problem in Canada is that we haven't let the market compete on a level playing field with the black market, and ultimately the goal of legalization is to eliminate the black market, not as a goal unto itself, but to support the real goal, which is to promote white market taxable economy, but also to provide regulation for the safety of the consumer. You just I can't imagine any other product that you would eat or rub on your body or consume in any way that you would not want to have authentication. And so the white market ought to win in cannabis because it's the better market for the consumer and the patient to find their fun or their medicine with patient or consumer safety assured. But the government has to let us compete by letting us market. Right now they don't let us market because they're worried that we might stimulate use, God forbid. And they also they've inhibited product development in Canada. We don't even yet have edibles coming.
Really?
Yeah, our edible market doesn't launch in December of 2019.
So I assume you're going to dominate that?
I want to talk about Pantry in a minute, but just to go back to where we began is that so usage is not up per se, but more Canadians that have never tried cannabis are trying it, and largely the reaction is, why did everyone lie to me about this? This is really not at all what I was expecting. And I went to a dispensary recently in Sarasota, Florida, and it was, even for me this many years, that it was still this incredible experience because there were 7 customers in the dispensary, the youngest of which was in their 60s, 2 of whom were using walkers. And I made it my point to speak to them because I just love this. This is what I am at. This is what we all dreamed of. It's not. This is a real. And they were every person I spoke to said the same thing as I wish someone had told me about this a long time ago. This has been the best thing. I've stopped taking my pharmaceutical products have changed the world and saved lives. We're not demonizing per se big pharma, but a lot of big pharma isn't doing us any favors. We can just look at Purdue and the whole opiate crisis. This is one of many examples. So just to see that, Meryl, is so affirming. And if that's where the usage is coming, mature adults, it tells us that the big lie was a big lie. And that why the question to ask is, what were the forces of evil that were preventing this from happening?
Well, I think we in America blame Nancy Reagan. She was the big
Just say
campaign,
no.
just
Yeah.
say no. That's what I grew up on. And so that's really, it's just an education now. I have kids in elementary and middle school, and I actually walked over to the school about 2 years ago to see what they were teaching our kids. And the page in the book, there's one page in the book, and it's like marijuana is pretty bad, except maybe for cancer. And that's still the message these kids have. But, like I teach my kids that cannabis is a plant, heals, and so they still come home and say, do you smoke weed every day, Mom? Like Snoop. But like they get the other side of it that people take a handful of pills.
Yeah, my kids have had to come to terms with the fact that it's impossible for me to be who I am and pretend that I'm not who I am at this point. But cannabis for me has always been a wellness product. It's just that I didn't understand it. So the fact that we have a wide cross-section of people that belie the stoner stereotype is really important. We've talked about this before. All that pothead and stoner vernacular is very negative, and it's really not fair, and it's not true, and it's a crude stereotype. And the source of the stereotype is that most people that didn't fit the stereotype wouldn't self-admit to use because there were consequences, stigma. I mean, if you were breaking the law, or your employer would fire you, or some of your social circle would think there was, I remember, like, I'm of the age, I'm 55, like, okay, it's cool now, but when I was a lawyer, and I had an oath to uphold the law, I had to be very careful because I could theoretically be disciplined for breaking the law in contravention of my code of professional conduct. But even beyond that, in my various businesses before I came to cannabis, I had to be very discreet about my use. When I started PharmaCan Capital, which then got corporate rebranded the Kronos Group, first 3.5 years when I was president and CEO, until we went public, I didn't update my LinkedIn because I have other businesses that are nothing to do with cannabis that I was concerned my customers would take offense, and that's exactly what happened when we went public, third company to go public in cannabis. I updated my LinkedIn, it got pushed out to everyone in my network, and I had some of my customers from non-cannabis give me the side eye and just say, I can't do business with you anymore. This is the way new ideas always go through the three stages. First they're ridiculed, then they're violently opposed, and then they're seen as self-evident. That's where cannabis has gone. But we gotta talk about food. 'Cause-
Yes.
Wait, I
Yeah.
just have to stop you right there real quick. I have to tell you, right after I met you a few months back,
Yeah.
I was the same way. I never put anything on my LinkedIn. I definitely didn't put anything on my Facebook because I have family and friends. Well, after I met you, you introduced yourself at a panel that you're a cannabis enthusiast, and I owned it as well. I opened up. I don't care if anyone knows or whatever. And
it's high time.
so I was like, if Paul can say it, so can I. So thank you for
It's
that.
been liberated. I've made it a point now to like no longer tiptoe on the fact that I am a cannabis enthusiast and have been, and have even talked about how I had OCD and ADD, likely undiagnosed, and I was somehow, once I started consuming cannabis in high school, my academic performance almost on the dime turned around to where I became an honors student, and then went to the top law school in Canada, went to the Supreme Court of Canada as an advocate very young in my career, which is almost unprecedented, and was really, don't joke when I would tell people that I think cannabis played a very important role in helping me stabilize and focus and become the person that I am, which I'm proud to be the person I am. I really mean that. It's today, and I'm happy that I have figured it out, even though it was not allowed. And I'm grateful. I'm pretty sure that I would have not been able to accomplish a lot of what I've accomplished, overcoming some, personal stuff, and also just feeling good, feeling optimistic, and feeling happy, and feeling energetic and ambitious. And I find cannabis, sometimes I joke, it's a performance-enhancing drug. It in no way does it slow me down.
So tell us about Pantry.
Okay, so here's the thing. Cannabis is a wellness product. Right? That's what I'm just saying redundantly, but I really
We all
believe
agree.
it, first and foremost. Okay, so here's the general current problem, in my opinion, with the cannabis industry is we're calling it a wellness product, and we know it's a wellness product, but largely as a consumer product, we're packaging it in a bunch of not so wellness sort of formulas or delivery mechanisms. So I've smoked a lot of flower in my life, like epic amounts. I'm 55 years old, but mostly I think it's not good for my lungs. It may not be a carcinogen, but still I like to be in great cardiovascular shape. I wouldn't recommend smoking. If I do it, I would say I wish I didn't smoke. It is a fun and social, but I don't see it's the healthiest way to consume cannabis. Vapes, I've never trusted vapes myself because I don't know what's inside. At least with a joint, it's just flour and hopefully a non-chlorine paper. I'm good to go. Non-bleach paper, it's great, no problem. But the food category to me is the obvious because eating is so ritualized. We're so used to it. So I'm like the safest way, the most bioavailable way to consume the wellness product, the good stuff, is to eat it, in my opinion, to go through the liver. There's a lot of research to support this. The problem is that when you go to a dispensary, you can't really find any food. You can find candy, and not even good candy. I'm not anti-candy. We're talking low-shelf candy.
Well, gummies.
Essentially low-shelf candy melted down with THC added, rebaked in a new mold, resold at high margin. And I have this, it bothers me because I started Pantry on the idea when I quipped to somebody that I'm eating these gummy bears, and I said, I would never eat this, except for one fact that it has THC. And then I said, that's so stupid. Why would you, like any product that you would only eat because it has THC, you shouldn't eat it. Can they not make a product that I would eat with or without the THC, which is meaning that designed by professional chefs, are proper provenance sourced ingredients that we can proudly point to. THC becoming not the headline, it's microdose. It's not about how much THC you get per dollar. It's about how much food you get per dollar. So Pantry is just bringing a very clear thesis that we are focused on one category only, food. Not gonna sell vapes, not gonna do flour. I think the food category is so wide open, and quite frankly, with some exceptions being done so poorly. As a consumer, when I introduce Pantry products, I keep hearing the same thing. This is the company we've been waiting for. A true chef-driven food company with incredible marketing to support it. And quite frankly, leadership from myself, one of, I think, humbly, certainly the most experienced executives in the industry, and very, very sincere and well-intentioned. But Pantry is great for me because it starts as a passion project with me as a consumer. I want these products for me. That's always a good place to start.
So what product defines Pantry?
We have right now, we're a product that I would say is sort of like the quintessence out of picking one. Two, I'm going to pick two. One is we're just hitting the market with infused olive oil. As you may know, we're in partnership with two well-known chefs out of Brooklyn, New York, the Franks. And the Franks have one of the best-selling olive oils on the shelves at Whole Foods. So we're in collab with the Franks introducing phenomenal, that quality of olive oil, their quality, if you will, which is at the top, with the added microdose of both CBD or THC. The other product that I think is really exemplifies what Pantry is all about is a vegan, diabetic-friendly keto bite. Low sugar, non-dairy, low-cal, delicious microdose, 2.5 milligram, unlike anything else on the market. And we're in the laboratory right now developing, the way, when you gotta to this, when you want to foment a revolution, you gotta do it with sort of one foot in the current world and then lead forward with the other foot. So I see what is on the shelf today, and I know there's a better product out there, and I know that better product will win. But at the same time, I'm not quite ready to bring the highest level of full food because the market's not quite ready yet. So I'll bring a keto bite as an alternative to a gummy bear. I'll do a pat of fooey, like a real fruit puree, which I have, as an alternative to a preservative-based gummy bear. My chocolates are not Hershey bars. They're at the top spectrum, with real chocolatiers with like 21 ingredients in each chocolate. One of them featuring Frank's olive oil again. So it's the best tasting product, undoubtedly, because if you went to a dinner party and you wanted to show up with a cannabis product, the way you might show up with a good bottle of wine, you would show up with Pantry because the box is stunning, the jar is stunning, the food is delicious. You can't show up at a nice party with a Hershey bar. It just doesn't cut it. And that's
plus you're the life of the party when you show up with the cool
Well,
cannabis.
people, this is how it is. Like bottle of wine is a cool cannabis product is really what, you're going to kind of bring to establish a little swag look. But like this really, people want it. But again, bringing like pre-rolls, whatever, bringing just like a bunch of flat chocolate bars in flat chocolate bar wrappers, you just wouldn't do that. You can't do that. I can't do that. I got to bring a delicious product. Like here's the paradox. Can I say this very quickly? And I hope I'm not speaking. Okay, so here's why food is a broken category, in my opinion, because we're teaching our consumer that the only metrics they should rely upon is how much THC is in the product, or what I call the price performance of THC per dollar. So if the liquor, spirit, wine, beer world behaved like cannabis, and you would go into the top wine or spirit store in LA, you'd say, I need the best product you have, like the really premium product, the one with the most alcohol in it, in the bottle. And you'd be corrected to say that's a low shelf product. That's Everclear or Runrico 151. That is not a premium product. That is the most juice for the dollar. But that's when you move up on the shelf. But cannabis right now is selling that lower shelf product because we're telling everyone the THC is expensive and important. It's neither. It's a part of the recipe, and it's certainly not expensive. So when we double the THC content in a gummy bear or a chocolate bar, and we up the price by 60%, the margin on that THC increase up is measured in thousands of percentage. I can prove it. I know it only costs pennies to double the THC dosage in a piece of chocolate. Pennies. But those pennies are being resold to the consumer for multiple dollars. Meanwhile, the rest of what's in that product is pretty meh. So you're way overpaying for THC, and because they're telling you the THC is what to measure, you're not measuring what else is in there, which I sometimes quip is, cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And there are some great edible products. I'm just saying, writ large, the category is poorly done.
Where can your products be found?
We are rolling out across dispensaries. Right now, we think we're in I believe I'm not supposed to name individual accounts.
What's the best way to find out about the product?
We have an Instagram and a website,
Perfect.
Pantry Food Company, and we are absolutely, and you can reach
Product
out.
under the name Pantry?
Yeah, and it'll be, you'll start seeing it on shelves.
It's a beautiful yellow and white box. with
Yeah,
a
the
black
box is
logo.
iconic, I have to say. The jar there's really nothing quite that aesthetically pleasing.
this-
I come from design, so if it doesn't look beautiful, I don't understand. It has to taste beautiful, look beautiful, and then we back it up with an incredible sales force that really champions the product at the dispensary level.
So this time of year, if you go to Trader Joe, it is all pumpkin all the time.
Yeah, you
I
got it.
counted over 75 products the other day, and I'm sure I missed a couple of dozen. So can you see a time when Trader Joe will have their CBD section, their pantry CBD?
Yes,
section?
very much. Actually, you know that it's like you were sitting in on a strategy session at Pantry a few months ago.
I was. Do you remember me? I don't remember.
The idea, this is exactly what you'll see Pantry do is we'll feature chefs from different regions of the world featuring original ingredients of the season. So imagine it's springtime in Marrakesh, and this is our chef, and this is our spice, and this is what we're making. I see Pantry as a food company. No, it is. I don't see it. It is a food company that is using cannabinoids where appropriate in moderation, but we're food. I say it to my team all the time. Pantry, we're a food company. Pantry, we're a food company. We're the only company that, as far as I could see, that is a pure food play in cannabis. We will be the most trusted brand in food for cannabis. I have no doubt, because we're not confused on any other message. We don't have any other vertical to serve. We don't have to worry about our vapes and our flour and anything. And it's just high time that we put the consumers first by selling them the best possible product, not just THC.
There are so many of us for whom our first edible experience was way back in the day, and it was some hash brownies. And, you know, they did the job. They did the job. We have no idea what was in them. We have no idea what the quantity was. We have no idea of the quality. But we knew that 3 days later they find you in a tree with your face painted blue. Your stuff, I assume, is more manageable.
Yeah, everything. I think microdosing is the way to consume cannabis. You know, you can always add, you can't subtract. So there's so many things wrong with like a single serving item. Like imagine if the whole Pringles business model was rip open that can, have one chip, wait like 90 minutes, and then dig in for that second chip. Maybe even 2 hours. So like my view is I'd like to make single milligram, 1 milligram, because that way you could have 10 over in an hour, reasonable snack quantity. So again, I love getting high personally, like as a person, I really enjoy it. So I have no trouble with people really wanting to get baked, but to get really baked, don't eat my baked goods. It's different. I would say that if that's what you want, which is totally cool, I recommend a gel cap. But just get to the point. Like you don't have to eat like salt and bad and preservatives and trans fats. If you just want, if they really only want the THC, we can just give it to you in a nice, like a good fat like olive oil, coconut oil, and then it's just in a gelatin gel cap, and it's boom, you got your buzz on, and then you don't have to eat a bunch of, that would be, but what I really want to have is a delicious experience that gives me maybe just a little bit of an activation, right? Just a little bit, perfectly appropriate at a formal dinner party.
A little skip in your step.
Nothing, not to be, sitting, and I think people can handle it. And if they have 2.5 mil, they're gonna feel it, but they're gonna just feel a light sense of wellness. And then if they want to have another one, that's cool too, because 5's not that much. I myself could have 3 or 4 of my products before it would make too much of a dent. But even one, I get a nice little, just feel good. And I don't drink. So compared to drinking, titration's a piece of cake.
The company is Pantry Food Co. The man is Paul Rosen, a visionary. You're a wonder and a joy, and thank you for coming to High on the Hog.
It's a pleasure, Meryl. Thanks so much, Joanna.
It's Meryl Schindler, it's Joanna Belson, it's Mr. Phil Giangrande. Thank you, sir. Got you next time. Thank you.
That was
That
a lot
was
of fun.
amazing.
Oh my
It was
god.
good stuff. Oh, it was great.
That
Fantastic.
chemical line was maybe the funniest thing I've heard in months. That was great.
Good.
That was perfect.
It's true though, right?
Yeah.
Totally true.
Did we turn that off? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.